I need to break on the homework, so we're starting a different project. We are going to start on Simplicity 8732, and this pattern doesn't actually belong to me, so I will not be cutting out the size I need. I will just be folding over the pieces that I need to use instead of cutting it out entirely, because this pattern actually belongs to my mom. We are going to make a few changes to this pattern though, because I don't particularly love the pleat detail at the front of the dress. Here at the bust, they use that to shape the bust, and I don't love it. So we are going to eliminate those pleats and shape the bust with darts instead. In fact, I am going to be using this pattern to shape the bust, and also to alter the, not the neckline, but alter the, oh, actually I might go ahead and alter the neckline, which means I need to go with those pattern pieces again, because I don't like how close, I don't want to do the collar. I don't like the Peter Pan collar either. I'd rather have like a boat collar, kind of like this dress has. So let me dig out those pieces again. So basically what I did in order to get the shape that I wanted is I just laid the new pattern pieces from the red dress on top of the pieces from the brown dress, and I traced over the shapes that I would like to keep. So I will go ahead and redo that. For the neckline as well. Probably angle you down so you could see, huh? That would be kind of me. But I did turn off my light, so let me get that. So with my green marker, I'm going to just draw in this neckline on the pattern piece that I'll be using. So you can see this new green line here, here, and here, and these darts will be what I will be using to make this dress, which means I will need to use the facings from this pattern as well. The neckline is actually, or the shoulder is actually sloped a little bit more on here, and the neckline comes up a little bit higher, which is a slight difference, but no biggie. I think I can go ahead and just draw in a line to show that this tapers, like so. And I will need, I think, those points. Do I have those points on? Oh, yep. I need those points from here as well. Okay. So I'm in the process of pinning the skirt panels. As you can see, I've already started. So let me go ahead and give you an update on what I've been doing on this dress so far. As a reminder, this is the one we're working on, but we are shaking it up a little bit because I don't love this. And I'd honestly, to be fair to the cover art, they didn't really do, they did her dirty, y'all. Because this dress, candidly, I don't think fits this particular model. If you look at the artwork, and that is much more indicative of the shape that you'll ultimately get out of this dress if you make it properly. I don't think they made it properly for this model, so it's a little bit unflattering on her. It's and the hair is of course an abomination, but you know, that aside, it is a modern simplicity pattern. This is a reprint of a original vintage pattern, so those always are tweaked in some way. But my best advice that I could give on this particular pattern, if you do buy it, and depending on how it turns out, don't use the chart on the back for your sizes. Don't do that. Don't.
because on the bodice and on the skirt panels it tells you what the finished garment measurements are, which are different than, you know, the measurements given on the back of the envelope. So for example, according to the back of the envelope, I should cut out the size 10, or actually even the size 12 based on my waist measurement and even my bust measurement. But when I pulled out the pattern pieces and looked, because there's ease built into this, I had to cut out the size 8. That's a 2 size difference on this dress, which is part of the reason I think it's not particularly flattering on the model. Apologies, I have somebody revving their engine across the street. Anyway, so yeah, currently where I stand though is I do have the bodice pieces with their modifications cut out. I had altered them to be more aligned with the other vintage pattern, like the actual vintage pattern. No, that was a reprint too, actually. It was just a really good reprint. But yeah, I have the back pieces cut out and the darts are sewn together. I'm going to flatline them to a piece of white muslin. I'm going to go with the pink as the fashion fabric, and it's going to be flatlined with this white muslin, and I'm probably just going to sew up the center back seam. Honestly, I probably could have cut that on the fold and avoided the center back seam altogether, but you know, it's hindsight's 2020. Anyway, so the back pieces are cut out. I need to flatline those together, and the bodice pieces are also cut out, and I need to flatline those together. All the darts are sewn in, and I think it should fit pretty nicely. So I will get to that as soon as I finish pinning together the skirt. Now the skirt, I am pinning this and making this up. I'll show you. I am pinning this and making this up with French seams because I'm using a polyester suiting, which isn't particularly friendly to just straight seams. You've got to finish the edges. You could do it with a serger, you could do it with the zigzag stitch on your machine, or you can bind the edges, or you can just do a French seam. And I think this fabric is thin enough. It's an appropriate weight to do French seams, and French seams for me are the easiest because I don't want to zigzag it, and French seams are a nice clean finish. And I think I want to put some care into making this a nice clean finish on this dress because hopefully it'll turn out, knock on wood. And I intend to wear this dress a lot if it fits me nicely, so that means I need to make it, and I need to make it well. But yeah, so French seams, basically what that entails is you sew together your pieces, you iron those pieces, you iron those seams, and then you fold them the other way around and stitch them down again. And what that does is it encases the raw edge. The only thing you really want to keep in mind, which doesn't apply here, is if you have a fabric with a pattern on one side and not on the other, or a finished side of the fabric versus the underside of the fabric where it's like really obvious what the inside of the fabric is, you want to kind of keep that in mind. And it's a little bit counterintuitive. You want to sew your seam with the raw edges exposed to the outside of the fashion fabric. So like this side of the fashion fabric as opposed to this side of the fashion fabric. So your raw edges will be on the outside of the fabric, and then when you fold it over the second time and run that second line of stitching, it'll encase those raw edges on the inside, on the wrong side of the fabric. And that's how French seams work. So that is the idea. You want to give yourself enough allowance when you are cutting out your pattern, so account for that extra bit of seam allowance you're going to need. I usually I'm naughty and squishy a little bit in my waist, so I could get away with, most of the time, I should say, I can get away with using the side of my presser foot as a guide on where to stitch, because it's just about half of 5/8, and these modern patterns come with a 5/8 seam allowance. So just keep your seam allowances in mind if you're going to add French seams, because most commercial patterns don't account for French seams. And if you eat up into your seam allowance, you will change the fit of the garment and it could end up being too small for you. So just keep those things in mind and ask me how I know.
Okay, I just thought I would get on camera because I haven't been documenting anything for this project. This is where I'm at on this dress so far. So I have put together all of these skirt pieces with French seams, and I didn't account for French seams when I cut out my pattern pieces. So this, I am worried, is too small. I won't know for sure until I attach the bodice and install the zipper, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's too small because I did in fact attach the bodice already, and I kind of tested it by pulling it on over my head and like checking it out and seeing if it was all good. And there was a pretty significant gap that I couldn't squeeze closed over my rib cage. If it was lower, like at the waist, like here, then you know it's fine. There's like a certain amount of squish there. Whereas the ribs, like there's no squish. Those are my ribs. They're not moving. So because that gap was at the ribs, I decided let me just go ahead and remove the bodice that I've already attached to the skirts, take it off, and then adjust one of these French seams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave all the other French seams in place, and then I'm going to open up this one and then resew it as a normal seam. The reason I used French seams is because, hello, this fabric really likes to fray. But I think it is something I can probably just overcast or ignore, probably ignore, because it's me and I don't like finishing seams if I can avoid it. So I'll just open this up and sew it as a normal seam, and I'm hoping that alone will give me enough allowance to, or I could just bind that edge. I've got binding tape. Yeah, I'll probably just end up binding that seam instead. I'm hoping that will give me just enough allowance to squeeze this dress on with a zipper in it. So here's to hoping, and I'm going to go through the miserable process of picking open this seam twice, you know, because it's a French seam. That is right, yeah, okay. I think I should probably put on a podcast. Just kidding, I don't listen to podcasts. I should probably put on some music for this. Oh right, as we can see, the skirt is now sewn back together and it has been attached to the bodice. And I also went ahead and sewn in the zipper with, quite stupidly, I used the contrasting thread. I didn't realize I was doing it with the contrasting thread until I had already done it, and at that point, you know, you don't pick out a zipper if it goes in well. Just you don't do it. And then I went ahead and stitched up the rest of the side seam as well. There's this tiny little bit where you can see through it, but you know, it's right underneath the arm, so it's fine. And then I also went ahead and tacked in the facings at the shoulder seam, and then in the front and the back of the dress to the lining as well. So really the only raw edge in this is at the waist, and that one seam that I had to, no, I bound that one. That is the seam that I had to redo, and I bound it with just some bias tape. So really I just have the one raw edge in this dress at the waist, and I'm fine with that. The last thing I have done is cross stitch down the hem. I ran just one row of stitches folding up one edge, and then I folded it again and cross stitched that down. So now I'm going to go around and press that, and this dress is done. So yeah, this time I promise I will get some worn pictures of it for you, because I don't think I've done that for the last couple of videos, and one of y'all called me out on it, so fair is fair. I'll get you some worn photos or worn video, one of the two. All right, let's go iron this.